we've had quite a few trainings from the clerk of recorder, Michelle Ascension. There were discussions by our board in regards to the roles and responsibilities of the Board of Supervisors from our county council. Therefore, that's why Supervisor Levere and I are bringing this forward versus Michelle Ascension. In the past, Mark Lund has been the one that made any of the amendments coming up on our voting systems. But since the county council leaned in and gave us this information, we are doing it on her behalf. I personally, just like any of our IT systems, I think it's really important that we have certified systems. Our voting system that we have is really one of only three certified in the California state by the California Secretary of State's office, and that's a bar that must be made for our voting systems. I think it's crucial that we are always updated with the most up-to-date systems. And so, I mean, I think it's important that we're upgrading our hardware, our software, that we have everything that is tested. It's not just the Board of Supervisors election. It's every single election from city, special districts, and college districts, state, federal. And so I think it's really important that we have all of our systems up to par for that and checked and made sure that it's certified and approved by all standards. So with that, I'm not really sure if there's any more I need to say. Supervisor Levere?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate you bringing this item with me today. I think everyone has had the chance to read the board letter and to see the history of how we got here, how it was really our former registrar of voters, Mr. Lund, who started this process, who did an exhaustive search of the available systems, and it was clear to him that Dominion was the best and the one that he wanted to use for elections in Ventura County. It is a decision which has been shared by our current registrar of voters, Michelle Ascension and Miranda and the entire elections team. And I think there's three kind of questions that have been posed that we need to answer. One is, I guess, it's crazy we even have to ask this, but why do we need a voting system? And it's because the requests that we get to do hand counts, a county our size, doing a hand count is illegal under California law. We don't have that option. So with that put aside, why Dominion? And if you do a neutral, independent deep dive on Dominion, here's what I found. Dominion is widely regarded as a safe and secure system. It designs and builds its own software code. It doesn't use code from other companies. It has no ties to any other voting system provider. If you look at it, the system has advanced security features, including end-to-end encryption, multi-factor authentication, and there are multiple levels of review and certification to confirm the accuracy, safety, and security of Dominion's voting system. And I want to go through some of those layers real quick. First, all of Dominion's systems and software components are tested and certified by the U.S. Election Assistance Commission at the federal level. And these systems are designed and certified by the U.S. government to be closed systems that do not rely on internet connectivity for use. Remote access does not exist on this system. It is not tied to the internet. And Dominion is certified by the Assistance Commission, which has strict security and reliability standards for all voting systems that it certifies. And then beyond that, beyond the federal certification, Dominion systems and software are then submitted to a federally accredited independent third-party test lab, which performs its own complete code reviews and certifies the systems at this kind of additional level. And this is just at the federal level. After that, it goes to the state, and then the voting system must go through stringent California requirements and heightened security protocols, which are required to obtain certification for use in the state of California. And these measures certify voting systems based on their functionality, accessibility, accuracy, and security. And through all that, Dominion has earned a reputation. It's highly regarded throughout the state of California due to its absolute compliance with the state and federal, these thorough certification standards, stringent audits, testing, and it undergoes this rigorous testing and audits to ensure the integrity of its use and our elections. Dominion uses advanced encryption and security protocols just to safeguard against cyber threats, against unauthorized access, and that is how it really ensures the integrity and accuracy of the votes the system counts. And so this robust oversight at the state level adds another layer of protection. And that, there's only, as Supervisor Long said, there's only 3 voting systems that we have the ability to choose from in California. And Dominion is recognized statewide for its absolute compliance with the strictest and most stringent security and performance standards. And I think that speaks to why 39 of California's 58 counties, and that's 2/3 of statewide counties, utilize this system. And then finally, it comes to us. And before every election, our own county election officials conduct systematic, thorough testing to demonstrate that the voting equipment they're using is properly working. I mean, we're talking about layer after layer after layer of protections to ensure the safety and security of our voting system. And I think that's why, if you look, there's independent security experts, election officials from all over the country, bipartisan audits have all consistently verified the accuracy and security of Dominion's technology. And now, why now? I think that's the third question. Why now? It's because if we adopt the recommendation from Supervisor Long and myself today, first and foremost, we're able to return 90 excess ballot marking devices and save nearly $40,000 in this year's budget. And then also, I think we have to be looking ahead. There could be special elections in 2025, and then the primary elections in 2026 are only 17 months away. And so it's, I think, imperative that we give Michelle and her team all the tools they need to start preparing for those elections right now and to make sure they have the most up-to-date technology available. And so those are my comments, Supervisor Long, and I appreciate, again, you bringing this item and allowing us to provide this technology and use to our clerk recorder and elections officials.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And I do want to make sure people know that all of the certifications and so forth are on the election website and on the state website. So no matter what, everyone can see the certifications and so forth. I think that's important, transparency-wise. And so with transparency, that's why we're bringing that here today. Thank you very much. And I wanted to bring back, there were some questions from public speakers and wanted to address those. On our board letter, it states the summary of revenues and costs for the upgrades of the system for 24, 25, and 25, 26. And to make sure that these upgrades are to comply with both the California voting system standards and the applicable state and federal laws to do these upgrades. And then I also wanted to state on the contract that after the 25, 26, future costs and fees will be considered and acted upon by our board in the election division budget during the budget hearing process in future years. So you'll see this will be very transparent. It comes up in our budget systems. And under section 15.2 of both agreements, if the funds are not appropriated during the budget hearing process, the agreement may be terminated by the county. And I wanted to confirm that too, because we were concerned as well in regards to the longevity of the contract. And so we don't want to tie the hands of future board members or any of that, and make sure that this discussion completely goes through with full transparency. And I wanted to touch base on that because I think that's extremely important. One, that our equipment is certified and that we're doing it, but that it doesn't tie the hands of the board and our clerk recorder to make correct decisions that they feel they need to do. So I wanted to talk about that first. Before I open up to any other questions from our supervisors, Supervisor Levere, did you have any comments on the public comments items? Okay. Supervisor Parvin, do you want to ask your questions first? Okay.
Okay. I've been listening to our constituents for quite a while on this topic. It's very lively. I like the interaction. A number of them have been asking some questions about an audit, a simple audit, which I just want to confirm, we have no authority to ask for that, right? I mean, we as a board cannot ask for more.
So it would be, I mean, when they're talking about the audit of that, the hand count of the vote, the 1% tally.
Correct.
I do believe that that is the purview of the clerk recorder, or registrar of voters. If she wants to do more than 1% is the standard under the law. As far as a audit in a bigger sense, the auditor controller can do an audit. Your board could give that type of direction, but you can't do anything, as we talked about in June, you can't do anything that would impede or step on the toes of the clerk recorder's duties under the law.
Okay, I just want clarification because we're hearing that over and over and over. And actually, that's probably the number one question I have been asked. I had 2 people from my district ask that just yesterday. Let's see, I think why I'm not comfortable with the current request is that it's locking us in to June of 2033. And we had talked last year when we were going through this whole topic that we were going to have time before 2027, when this contract expires, to have really analyzed and done our due diligence on all products available. And I noticed in the staff report, it says 39 of 58 California counties are using this system. But another speaker actually today mentioned that technology continues to change, which I couldn't agree more. But at the same time, I don't want to be locked into a system for 9 more years that we didn't actually vote for. I didn't. And it doesn't mean that I wouldn't after doing a due diligence. But right now, I think I would prefer that we waited and really done our homework. That's my preference. I know that the 2 of you that have brought it forward voted for Dominion back in the day. And I'm just saying that I'm listening to our constituents. They just want us to do our homework. That's all. I think that's what they're asking for. I just feel like this is very rushed. I'm just sharing my personal thoughts. I feel very rushed by this. I didn't see the full agenda item until Saturday, even though I guess it came out Friday afternoon. I didn't have a heads up this was coming because last year we were told this contract's good through 2027. So therefore they gave us time to really do our homework, right? That's how I felt until I saw this. I really want the opportunity to dig deeper into all options. Just because California, 39 of 58 are using it in California, what else is available? Are they in the process of being approved right now by the state? I don't know. There's a lot that's unknown for me here. I really want to be able to do due diligence myself, aside from all of our constituents doing the homework as well. And I'm not saying that that Dominion won't be the one. I'm just saying I want to really dig into it myself. And I think this all came up very quickly and a little upsetting that we were told that it's good till 2027 and now we're being told, let's do it. Let's just take it to 2033. I'm not comfortable with that. Let's see. I now know after listening to the report that there's a why, but I couldn't find the why we're doing this in the board letter. I really wanted to know the why, but I couldn't call because that's a Brown Act violation. But we've been listening to hours of testimony, hours and hours. So I'm not sure why we're rushing this, because I really feel it's rushed, especially when you have time through 2027. I'm going to bring that up again. And I don't know why we're doing this today. Frankly, again, I'm going to say how frustrated I am, because I don't want anyone to think it's a negative reflection on our election official. It's nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with time to actually do research, and I'm not comfortable with making this recommendation. That's my comments.
Thank you. And I think you touched on a very important factor, that two supervisors can talk about an item, but no one else can. And with the Brown Act, we cannot do that. And there's many items in here. I understand that you love research, and we have been talking about this for a very long time with the board, and that it's important to know that I need to validate and make sure people know that we did vet very hard the system with Mr. Lund at the helm of the clerk recorder. And that due diligence was done through the voting is through this board. So I want to make sure that people know that. I understand as an elected official, you might have your own things that you do to make sure that your vote is very to what you're liking. But I did want to hit that because that's not something that we can do. And the other part about being rushed, I don't feel, again, you're talking about your feelings, I'm talking about my feelings. I don't feel this was very much rushed. It was, we got the letter together, the contract was together, and wanted to make sure that we brought it here together today, because also, once the contract's done, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into validation and certification, and the timing of that versus the different elections that are going on too is important, and at least to me, and that we're complying with our voting system standards, to me, is extremely important. So I just wanted to push that out, because I think you're right, we do need a secured system. Supervisor Grill.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to say that there was an issue that was, a concern that was brought up earlier about time management, and although it was brought up in a way that was inappropriate and broke decorum, I do think the point is well taken, particularly today when we have such an important issue with so many people here on both sides of the issue. I think there would be, we had a number of ceremonial and proclamations that don't affect our budget, that don't affect policy in such a deep way before this. So there's a lot of photographs taken and things like that while people waited, and we've lost some people on both sides. And I think that the issue is a good one, and I would just ask Chair and our Vice Chair to consider ways to address that going forward, because of the opportunity to waste people's time with some of the more ceremonial things that we do, and when we know we have something weighty and heavy and constitutional like this to discuss later in the afternoon. I do have some deep concerns with this. I think it's the wrong direction, and I have 3 reasons for that, and I'd like to discuss them. The first is the timing. I confirmed with staff that there really is no reason that we need to act on this today. The current contract with Dominion goes through the end of 2027. There's no necessity to act today. There are other machines here today. There are currently 3 systems. I don't know anything about those systems. I don't know what lessons have been learned from other jurisdictions that may be using those other machines. I don't know their efficacies, their ease of use by staff. I don't know the cost or the financials on any of those other machines that the California Secretary of State has approved. And I don't know any of the other security issues related to any of those other 3 machines. I'm advised by staff that we don't have to necessarily act on this until maybe next year, end of next year. Maybe more than 3 machines will be certified by the California Secretary of State by the end of next year. So we say there's only 3 now, but there may be even more by the time that we're really required to look at the continuation of this Dominion contract. The second issue I have challenge with is this was brought forward by 2 supervisors rather than by a department director. We're not the subject matter experts on this. We haven't learned all of those issues that I just mentioned. What are the pros and cons of each one? And how do they stack up against each other? And which one provides the best result, the safest, most efficient result for the best money in a long-term contract. We don't know that here today. There's nothing about that in this board letter. There's no public process. This is the third reason why I'm concerned. There's no public process. This board demands public process every day. Our trash services, it was a year and a half, rack and stack and spreadsheets and matrix of different waste haulers. Which one is better for which area? It was a competitive process. It was an RFP. We evaluated multiple different options, multiple different companies, and then it came down ultimately to the awarding of different companies in different areas that made sense because it came with evaluations and recommendations. Emergency medical services, we're going through it right now. Which ambulances can go to which communities and why? This is a laborious process. It's an RFP. There's a lot of debate. There's ongoing discussion. We're not having any of these kind of discussions here. We're not having any of these kind of transparencies. There's no matrix. There's no rack and stack. We don't know anything about the other providers that could compete against Dominion here today. The Family Justice Center, I brought a motion to bring a Family Justice Center to the East County last March, and we said, we need a process. It's now been a year and a half. It's going to be longer before we get a Family Justice Center because this board demanded a public process so that we were brought to this board a recommendation after thorough evaluation of all of the locations, all of the opportunities, and then the public had a chance to chime in. We are always, as a board, looking for ways to increase transparency. We are always, as a board, looking for ways to increase trust. Whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, there's a national concern about election integrity. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist or an election denier to want transparency. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist or an election denier to want to see a public process with a matrix, with a rack and stack of efficacy, of lessons learned from other jurisdictions, of cost, about security, on all of the systems that we can choose from. You don't have to be those things to just want good governance and good accountability, and that's what we're discussing here. I don't put myself in either one of those categories. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not an election denier. But I don't think this helps. In fact, I think this hurts. I didn't see this item until about 48 hours ago. I didn't read the board letter until midnight of last night, and I'm being asked to cast a vote on what system will count our ballots until well after I'm out of office. Darkness cannot cast out darkness, only light can, and the light that we need for this process is just a public process, due diligence, a matrix, an opportunity to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and in the end, I might choose Dominion. I might very well say, that's it. It's the best bang for the buck and is reliable. Our county staff that are amazing, by the way, knows how to use it. They know how to use it well. And those other machines, not so great. But we're not going to know any of those things with this vote today. And so therefore, I would simply ask this body to pause, to postpone this vote. And I would also ask this body to ask the CEO to work with county council and the registrar of voters to put together a public process to look at all of the options, allow some public input on those options. If we need to pay for an independent consultant to help the registrar of voters, I'm happy to cast that motion. Whatever extra manpower is needed to accomplish a thorough, thoughtful rack and stack like we do with every other important, expensive decision that this board makes, I'm happy to be a lead on that effort. But until then, I have to vote no, a hard no. Thank you.
Supervisor Lopez.
Thank you, Chair, and appreciate you and Supervisor Olivier bringing this item forward. So the letter indicates that the letter on this item indicates it was reviewed by County Executive Office, County Council, auditor controller, and the county clerk recorder and registrar of voters. So if I can ask, were there any concerns? And talking about two other countywide elected officials who take their job very seriously, I believe. So I'm just wondering if there were any concerns about this being, or coming forward. And sorry to put you on the spot, Mr. Berg, but just wondering if there was any concern about the process and how this was being done for the board to consider this. And before you answer, as was mentioned, I think this is a public process, and there is an opportunity for the public to engage and provide their input. They have been providing input and public comment for a number of months, and as has been stated, a number of hours altogether. So I don't see this being done in darkness. It has been a public process, and to me, it's a matter of staying current and up to date to ensure that our election process is working. So, sorry, Mr. Berg.
No, thank you, Supervisor. No, I received an email from Supervisor Levere saying the board letter was out there, and we had sufficient time to review the contract, and no issues from my office whatsoever. Plenty of time.
Thank you. So with that, Chair, I again appreciate you both bringing this item forward, and it is a public process. We have heard speakers and appreciate the concerns and the questions from two other colleagues, so thank you.
But if I may clarify, the review by the CEO, the county council, and the auditor controller is for the letter itself. It's not for a comparison of machines, and it's not for the completeness of a public process that would allow input on multiple options.
Thank you for the question, Supervisor. Yes, the review of the board letter is ensuring that the board letter is complete and accurate as far as we know. We did not do a process of comparing machines or any other voting system. Thank you.
Supervisor Levere. Or sorry, County Council first, and then Supervisor Levere.
I was just going to add, as far as the county council's review of the item, like any other agenda item, it's to review it to make sure that it's legally sufficient. When I review the board letter and the contract amendments with the First Amendment and the original agreements to make sure that they were all legally sufficient. We don't get into the policy or merits of the decisions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I want to acknowledge both of my colleagues' concerns and comments. I genuinely appreciate hearing them. I think Supervisor Long and I both wish we could have sat down with every one of you and explained why we're doing it now. Obviously, the Brown Act prevents that, and so it was never an intention to spring anything on anybody. It's just the realities of living within the Brown Act. But to me, why now, beyond the financial benefits we're going to see this year, is the elections are going to be here before we know it. And by doing it now, we are giving the tools to Michelle and Miranda and the entire elections team to get going and to make preparations so they're not scrambling last minute to make sure they have the most up-to-date technology and systems they need to prosecute what may be special elections in 2025 or what we know for sure will be elections coming in early March 2026. And that cycle is going to start January 1. And so, we are a little more than a year from 2026 primary elections. I would say our former registrar of voters, Mark Lunn, and the board in 2018, 2019, I wasn't there, but I know you were, Supervisor Long, did a deep dive on what was available and made the decision that Dominion was the best voting system. Our current clerk recorder and a registrar of voters, Michelle Ascension, and her team did an analysis and believed that this is the best system. I think both of them are the true experts, and I have tried to do my non-expert analysis, and I too agree with them that this is the best possible voting system. I have every faith in the system itself and its application under the leadership of Michelle and Miranda. We've been talking about this in a public setting for well over a year now. I think everyone has had sufficient time on both sides of the debate to share their feelings, to share their thoughts. And in speaking with Supervisor Long, we both recognized that time is short and that we want to and I'll speak for myself, I don't want to speak for you, Supervisor Long, kind of plant my flag on the ground in terms of my confidence in Dominion, my confidence in our voting team to utilize the Dominion system, to execute our next round of elections. And that is why I think it's important to act now and to move forward and to let Michelle and Miranda and the elections team have the most updated system, and so they get working on what we know is going to be a very difficult job over the next 2 years.
Thank you. Okay. I did want to ask council, if future boards want to pause, or if next year or the year after that, future boards want to, or future years of boards want to pause for this extension, can they choose that?
You will, if your board acts today, it will be approving these second amendments, extending the term of the contracts to June 30th of 2033. Therefore, it's now under the terms of the contract, so any types of delays or changes would have to be within the terms of the contract. There are termination provisions, like you'd highlighted earlier, the one about the non-appropriation of funds, but we will be in a contractual relationship, so whatever is acted upon has to be in compliance with those terms. Otherwise, the county would be in breach of contract.
Right, and so I just wanted to make sure that it's a definite budget of funds, and that each year, this board will be voting on that, whether to fund those provisions or not.
That would be, yes, it would be part of the budget process for the clerk recorder's office. And your board would be considering that during the during the budget hearings when you consider their office.
Right, and appreciate the information for everybody. We have been working with the clerk recorder's office. They provided this information to us. We have been updating everything to try to get everyone as checks on the CEOs and the county council and the auditors and the clerk recorder. So I don't want anyone to think that Matt and I, Supervisor Levere and I just decided on a Thursday night, we're going to put this letter together. Nothing in government goes fast. I just want to tell you that. We have been working on this, putting this letter together for quite a few months. Unfortunately, we can't talk to our board, and we can't have our staff talk to your staff on these items so that you can do your due diligence and so forth. But I do want to make sure that this has been a public process. We have been talking about our equipment for how we do elections, how our audits are, how the statistics have come up, how they've been certified by the state. And so this is making sure that our systems are up to speed. And yes, this is one of only 3 systems that is able to be used in the state for California. And so we need a voting system that is up to speed. That's how I see it. At that time, a board wants to approve a different system, then we will discuss that. But right now, the board letter that we're talking about today is to upgrade our systems that we currently have. Supervisor Levere, is there anything else?
I have
Is there any-
another
Yes,
comment.
Supervisor Parvin, yes.
One thing we hadn't talked about throughout the past year and a half, since I've been on this board, is a time frame or an extension, as 9 years is a long time. So that's never been discussed, and what was discussed was the 2027 date. So that's why I'm taken back by, I feel not comfortable with this length of time. I don't know where that came from. That was never discussed, ever brought up in any of our meetings that I recall, unless somebody else recalls that. I do not recall that date, 9 years from now, ever being mentioned. So that's the part that's the rub for me, aside from the fact that we have done all these different bidding processes and RFQs for so many things, and yet we're not really doing it here. Then we're going to be locked in, and we're going to get fined for trying to make a change. Fined probably a large amount, but I don't really know, do I? So you can see that I'm taken back by it. I can't help it. I don't like anything that goes out 9 years on something that's so critically important to the voters, all voters, no matter what side of the party you're on. So I just wanted to make one more comment about it before I say, no, I don't support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? If I can get a motion?
Item 36, moved by Supervisor Levier, seconded by Supervisor Lopez.
And Supervisor Levier, that's to move the recommendations in the board letter. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, that motion is approved, 3-2.